This is Ray Varner, class of 2010, with the Living Legacies Oral History Program, the Women of Randolph-Macon Oral History Program in Burke, Virginia, on August 10th, 2011. With me today is Cheryl Woolfolk, Kfuri. Okay, Cheryl. So the first question I'll ask you is, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Newport News, Virginia.
Where did you go to high school?
I actually graduated from Minchville High School, but I had spent all my prior years at Ferguson High School. But as a result of busing, I ended up graduating from Minchville High School.
Okay. And those were public schools, so they were...
Yes, they were public schools.
Okay, so it was men and women?
Sorry?
It was co-ed?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
They were co-ed.
So how did you first hear about Randolph-Macon College?
I heard about Randolph-Macon through another Ferguson classmate, Lou Ann Davis, who was in the first class of women at Randolph-Macon, who had mentioned to me that she was going to be going to Randolph-Macon. So when I went on my college tour, Randolph-Macon was one of the schools I visited.
Do you remember that visit?
I remember it very well. I went on the tour with my mother, and we visited most of the schools in the state of Virginia. And I was very impressed with the dean of admissions at the time. I'm not sure that was his actual title at that point in time, but his name was Deal Tompkins. And he basically interviewed me and showed me around the school and made me believe that if I applied, I would get accepted.
Well, what did you think of the campus?
I thought it was very pretty. I had my heart set on going to the University of Virginia, but my parents were not in favor of that. They thought it was an extremely large school, and that perhaps that wasn't the right environment for me. So I was starting my college tour with that in mind. And of all the schools that we visited, I really liked Randolph-Macon. I really liked the idea that it was just turning co-ed, that there would be few women. Indeed, when I first went on my interview, I understood that there were going to be something like 700 men and 100 women, which the odds were very attractive to me. I also understood that the college would never have an enrollment any larger than 1,000. So that small, unique nature, together with the attention I thought I would get from my professors, and having real professors versus graduate students, was very appealing to me.
Yeah, so you mentioned that you liked the fact that women were just, allowed to into the college. So can you talk more about that, other than just, like ratios?
Well, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting to be a pioneer, to be one of few, if you will. That made me feel that the women that were accepted were more carefully selected, and I thought that was an important feature of the whole admissions process.
Okay. Do you remember arriving on campus as a freshman?
Oh, absolutely. I prior to actually going to Randolph-Macon my first day, I had been in conversations with Gay Cowling in the class ahead of us, and she was supposed to be my roommate. And we had exchanged phone calls, and she had told me about her room and the color scheme of her room, and I had tried to coordinate my things to go with her things in terms of bedspread and things like that. And so the first day I arrived, I standing in line, and I get this room number, and I said, well, that's not what Gay had told me. And I found out later that father had been convinced to allow her to have a single room. So she had this big, beautiful corner room in Mary Branch Dormitory. And I and my new roommate, who was Honora Louise Bush, better known as Noni, we found ourselves as roommates in the smallest room on the hall that used to be where the maids kept all their cleaning products. That had been turned into a dorm room for Noni and me. Noni also had expected to have a different roommate who subsequently got a single room also. So the two of us were thrown together in this tiny room, and I'll never forget it.
Did you get along with Noni?
Oh, we were roommates almost the entire time when we were at Randolph-Macon. I believe during one semester, perhaps two, I can't remember correctly, she moved to what at the time was called New Dorm, which was a brand new dormitory and had air conditioning. Mary Branch did not have air conditioning, and she, wanted to live in a more modern facility. But she eventually returned to Mary Branch.
So that was the reason why you didn't live together, because she wanted to live in the air-conditioned dorm?
Yep.
Okay. She mentioned that it might have been your suggestion that you two find different roommates for that year. But I don't know if you remember that. But
I don't recall it that way, but
that's fine.
That's what Noni recalls.
I was just letting you know. Do you remember what the food was like while you were there at Randolph-Macon?
Yes, I remember it. It wasn't. We knew it was okay. I wouldn't say it was anything gourmet. I do remember on Sundays they gave us steak, and that was, a big event. I think the meals probably I liked the most were breakfast. They had this great coffee cake, which was delicious, and I think that's probably what I most remember about the cafeteria.
All right. Can you tell me about your social life while you were at Randolph-Macon?
Well, I enjoyed the activities that were available to us. As far as extracurricular activities, I didn't really participate in anything like that because I worked. I worked at a warehouse outside the city of Ashland. It was owned by a company called Best Products, which I believe doesn't exist any longer, but basically they were a mail order catalog business. And I worked in their warehouse every day after school, basically putting the orders together and packing them so they could be shipped. On Sundays I worked in a nursery at one of the local churches.
So you mentioned that you enjoyed the activities that they provided. What were the activities that were provided?
Well, the usual stuff, dances, parties, those kinds of things.
That Randolph-Macon organized?
Well, Randolph-Macon or fraternities or whatever.
Okay. So you weren't involved in any clubs or other things like that?
No, didn't have time.
Okay. So it was just a time issue. I mean, you feel like they were there, but there's just time?
Yeah, I mean, I studied and I worked. That's what I did.
Did you enjoy riding bicycles?
Yeah, I had a bicycle when I was there, and I had used it mainly for transportation rather than pleasure riding.
Oh, okay. All right, so just Noni said something that you liked bicycles, so. So who were your best friends while you were at college?
Well, the first year, I think, because we were all basically in Mary Branch dorm. The dorm had 3 different north, middle, and south, and we were all in one branch. And I would say most of the people that were on my floor became, my good friends just by being together in Mary Branch. Certainly, I considered Noni a good friend. Ellen Cornelius and Debbie Smith, Becky Baker, Becky Frith, Barbara Lovatis were certainly people that I considered my good friends while I was at Randolph-Macon.
So, did you stay together throughout the time? Did everyone kind of live in the same dorm throughout?
Pretty much, but a lot of people did move over to new dorm, and some of those people did not graduate from Randolph-Macon. Becky Frith, for instance, transferred to William and Mary. So yeah, pretty much, I guess.
Do you remember? Did you attend the big social events like homecoming and Hampton-Sydney and those kind of things?
Oh, absolutely.
So, what was the Hampton-Sydney games like?
A lot of yelling. I remember always rooting strenuously and for any sports event at Randolph-Macon. I thoroughly enjoyed going to sports events. I still do. And yelling my head off for the home team.
What was it? Was it pretty tame, the things that you would yell, or especially during Hampton-Sydney, the games? Or, I mean, do you feel like... I guess what I'm trying to ask is that, was it elevated for Hampton-Sydney, obviously?
I would say that I probably yelled excessively for any sports event.
Okay. All right.
And I don't think I distinguished myself, more for Hampton-Sydney versus other schools. Certainly, I appreciated the rivalry between the two institutions, and that made it more exciting because we tend to have larger crowds that would come to those games versus crowds for some of the less well-known schools, if you will, or the schools we were less competitive with.
Did you attend Camptown?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
What was that like?
You couldn't go to Randolph-Macon if you didn't go to Camptown races. Again, it was a lot of fun. It was, one big party, and I enjoyed watching the horse races and watching the people.
So there were horse races when
yes,
you were...
there were at that time. There were real horse races.
I've heard that colleges, students from all over Virginia would come. Is that true? Do you feel like that?
Well, I mainly stayed together with the Randolph-Macon crowd, so I couldn't tell you, where the other people came, but certainly the crowd was large, and Camptown races were very well known in the area. So it wouldn't surprise me if students came from other colleges around to go to Camptown races.
Do you remember? Were you there? Was the old gym still there while you attended school?
Yes, it was still there.
Do you remember when they tore it down?
Yes, I remember when they tore it down. Many people were very upset by that. They didn't like the idea that they were tearing that landmark down.
As students at the time, I guess you would just, the building had always been there, but did you feel, what did you feel when the building was torn down? Did you share the same opinion?
Well, I thought it was sad that they tore it down, just like the Wash Frank Hall that they've now renovated. It seemed to me that if they had wanted to, they could have saved it and renovated it for some purpose, just as they did Wash Frank Hall, just like they've maintained Mary Branch Dorm all these years. So for me, it was very sad.
So, I guess they built the campus center, not really in the place, but, sort of close, I guess, across the fountain. So what did you think of the campus center when it was built?
It was a nice facility, but it was very modern, and that came almost, at a later time in my, while I was at Randolph-Macon, so it didn't really, it didn't mean that much to me, like the old buildings had meant to me.
Yeah. Makes sense. I asked that just because everyone now talks about how bad that building is. So I just wonder the opinion of when they actually built it. Like what people thought of it. So I can only imagine. So, what did you think of the visitation policies at the time while you were there?
Well, I mean, with respect to men and women, is that what you're referring to? I understood. Some people thought that was horrible and outrageous, and I also know a lot of people that completely ignored the rules with respect to it. I didn't. Not something I dwelled on one way or the other, quite honestly.
Okay. So going to academics now, what was your major while you were around?
I majored in economics.
Did you come in thinking that you would major in economics, or?
Not really. I did want to major in something that I thought would be useful in business, and I always enjoyed math, and I thought about majoring in math. Dr. Moore, who was a professor there at the time, was encouraging me to major in math. But at the end of the day, I thought, well, an economics degree would be more useful in terms of finding a job. And since I went to Randolph-Macon with financial assistance, finding a job was important to me.
I guess, was Ronald Moore pretty influential in your experience at Randolph-Macon, or?
No, I mean, he was influential to the extent that he, encouraged me to pursue, higher math courses. And I did take all the math courses that were available to me except for the final few to get the major. Since Randolph-Macon did not recognize minors at that time, and there was no such thing as a double major, in the end I said, what's the point? Because by that time I had decided to major in economics and didn't see the need to continue taking math courses because I knew it wouldn't count for anything, so to speak.
Who were the professors that you feel like were influential?
Well, I wouldn't say the professors were influential in my life at Randolph-Macon more than as much as Mrs. Shackelford, who was our house mother at Mary Branch. Mm-hmm. But professor-wise, Dr. Baskins, of course, was head of the economics department at that time, and working with him was Ed Schmidt. And, of course, I had classes with both of them, and I considered Dr. Baskin my advisor because I was an economics major.
So, can you tell me more about Mrs. Shackelford?
Mrs. Shackelford was the house mother, as I mentioned, at Mary Branch dorm. And she was the most gracious lady I've ever met in my life. She taught me so many life's lessons while I was there, putting things in perspective. She was always a person that the girls could go to, I should say the women could go to, for about anything. She was very open and willing to listen to whatever the issues were, academic or otherwise, and was extremely supportive of all the women that lived at Mary Branch dorm. She kept coffee brewing constantly. Her door was always open, so you could always slip in and have a cup of coffee with her, or just have a cup of coffee, take it to your room, whatever. And I think that she, made a great impression on me, and I stayed in touch with her up until her death. And when I donate money to Randolph-Macon, I always donate it in her memory.
So you were in Mary Branch all 4 years, right?
Yes, I was.
So I guess she was the house mother the entire time as well?
Yes, she was.
So, sorry to switch topics on you so much, but what were the important classes, do you feel like, that really stood out in your experience?
Well, I really enjoyed all my math classes, to be honest with you. I loved taking those math classes, and of course I enjoyed my economics classes. My accounting class was a challenge, but I think I was able to master that. So those are all of my, major and math-related classes, I would say, were the classes that most stood out for me. The other classes I took were basically either requirements, that you had to take, or extra classes to fill up your schedule, so to speak.
So, what did you do after graduation?
Well, I applied and got accepted at graduate school, and I went to the University of South Carolina in a very specialized program. Again, it was a brand new program, which appeals to me. I like being a pioneer. It's called, at the time, it's since changed names, but it was a Master's in International Business Studies. And since they didn't have the equivalent program in the state of Virginia, I was able to go to South Carolina and pay in-state tuition. So that was extremely beneficial to me. And especially since I didn't have to pay back my loans, I could defer all of those while I went to graduate school. As part of this graduate program, I did an internship in Belgium. When I graduated from graduate school, I got a job in New York, working for the Foreign Credit Insurance Association. I subsequently got married and moved to California. Lived in San Francisco, and worked at a company called ITIL Corporation. Then my husband was transferred to Sao Paulo, so I moved to Sao Paulo, worked as an auditor for Deloitte Haskins and Sells, and then was hired by Crocker National Bank, which was a bank headquartered in San Francisco. Crocker National Bank was acquired by Midland Bank, so I became a Midland Bank employee and was transferred to Buenos Aires, Argentina. Then I returned to the United States and worked for a government agency called the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, and for about 10 years, as a matter of fact. And then I joined the Inter-American Development Bank. And that's where I am now, and I've been there 15 years.
So, I mean, you definitely stayed in your field, I guess, in your major field. I mean, throughout the time, in a sense, right?
Absolutely. Always in the economics, finance area. And my whole career has basically been involved in Latin America.
Did you take any languages while you were Randolph Macon?
French. That's why I did my master's program. You had to also study a foreign language at the same time. And of course, since I had already had French, I chose French. And that's why I went to Belgium to do my internship.
Makes sense. So how have you stayed in contact with the college since you've graduated?
Oh, basically, I stay in contact through the alumni publications we receive, bulletins and things of that nature. I periodically have visitors from Randolph Macon, director of giving and things of that nature. I went back to Randolph Macon and was part of a panel for Career Day, talking about our experiences after Randolph Macon. And then, of course, through my friends. And basically, the person I stay most in touch with is Noni. But I also stay in touch with Peggy Berry Hale, who is now Peggy Unkefer. Who's now Peggy Hale. She used to be Peggy Berry Unkefer. Yeah. But anyway, she's in Europe right now. Yeah. I got that all wrong.
So, this is a hypothetical question, but I guess it's hypothetical. I guess it's hypothetical. I don't really know. I say that. I guess. Sorry, but if there were an entering freshman, I mean, there are a bunch that are just about to start. But if you were to give them any advice based on your time there and your life experiences, what advice would you give them?
I think that they should enjoy and experience everything there is to experience about college, because I think that your education, first of all, is a valuable asset that you take with you anywhere. But the friends that you make while you're in college can become lifelong friends and be valuable to your future as well. And I think that college is just a wonderful experience, and they should take advantage of it in every respect. I particularly think that having a liberal arts education is very beneficial for anyone, because I think it helps you become more well-rounded as an individual.
Is there anything that you feel like these questions haven't touched on that you feel like was an important part of your experience, or something that you would like to share?
No, I guess we probably touched on all the key points. I thoroughly enjoyed my years at Randolph-Macon. I loved being there. I loved the people I met. I don't regret a day that I applied to Randolph-Macon and not anywhere else.
Well, thanks for your help, and that's all the questions that I have. So thank you.